Yesterday, we talked about the bathroom wars that have erupted on Capitol Hill. Delaware elected the first trans congressman who identifies as a congresswoman. This necessitated Republicans, beginning with Nancy Mace, to introduce a measure clarifying that only actual women can use the women's restroom. Well, the update is that yesterday, Speaker Mike Johnson announced that indeed men were banned from women's facilities at the Capitol. This is only a day after Johnson had initially been too shy to say, whether the trans Congressman Sarah McBride is the name he goes by now, is actually a man.
This is Matt Walsh's fiery take on the Capitol Hill bathroom debate, centering on trans Congressman Sarah McBride. Matt does not hold back. He dives into Speaker Mike Johnson's bathroom ban, the GOP's shifting stance, and why Walsh thinks the trans agenda is collapsing under its own weight. If you're here for unapologetic commentary and a bold stance against what Walsh calls bathroom lunacy, you're in the right place. Buckle up, because Walsh, as normal, does not hold back.
A day later, he banned him from the women's room. And now we have the response from McBride. Reading from the Daily Wire, it says the trans-identifying congressman at the center of a Capitol Hill bathroom battle has agreed not to use the women's facility following a mandate from House Speaker Mike Johnson. Sarah McBride, a newly elected representative from Delaware who identifies as a transgender woman, issued a statement on Wednesday saying that he will abide by Johnson's Wednesday directive that all single-sex facilities in the Capitol and House office buildings are reserved for individuals of that biological sex. McBride said, "I'm here to fight for Delawareans and to bring down costs facing families. Like all members, I will follow the rules as outlined by Speaker Johnson, even if I disagree with them."
Walsh wastes no time calling this a retreat. He frames McBride's compliance as weakness, a desperate pivot away from a losing battle. Here's the kicker. Walsh points out how, a few years ago, trans activists would have fought this tooth and nail. Where is the resistance now? Walsh argues that they're backing off because they know they've lost the narrative. The GOP smelled blood in the water here, and Walsh gleefully calls out what he sees as the Democrats' collapse on the issue.
So he's not going to fight over bathrooms because he knows it's a losing fight for him. A few years ago, he definitely would have fought over the bathrooms. Watch.
Hey everyone, I told you I wasn't going to stop with Capitol Hill. I'm filing another bill tonight that would ban biological men from women's spaces on all federal property all across the country. This fight starts here. It starts now. Men are not allowed in women's spaces, period. Full stop, end of story.
This is a pivotal moment. Walsh hypes Mace's tweet as a watershed moment for Republicans, who he says wouldn't have dared say this just a few years ago. But there's a critique buried here. Walsh admits the GOP is late to the fight, essentially being dragged kicking and screaming into what he calls the side of common sense. He wants credit for leading the charge while slamming the GOP for arriving late, but he's undeniably pleased with this newfounded boldness. It's a sharp jab at the GOP, but one meant to rally his audience.
Now, I would certainly stop short of saying that the fight starts here. The fight actually started many years ago, so that doesn't actually start here. Republicans in Congress are just now joining the fight. And you just kind of have to deal with the fact that, this is the way it goes. This is politics. They're going to start sort of taking credit and positioning themselves as leaders on an issue, even though in reality, they're actually following our lead. That's all fine. This is the process of winning. We need to drag the Republican Party kicking and screaming over to where we are. And one of the ways you incentivize them to do that is that, when they finally come over to where we're standing, they can, start talking about how they're taking the lead in the fight and all that kind of stuff. And I'm okay with it because it's all part of winning. But it does really show you something important. Like here, look at this tweet from Nancy. Nancy Mace put this tweet out yesterday. She said, "Your mental illness will not become my new normal." Again, great. I totally agree. It would have been totally unthinkable for a Republican to put out a tweet like that 3 years ago. Almost no elected Republican would have spoken that way even 2 years ago. The kinds of things that they're saying, which again, you back 5 years ago, it's just, it would never happen. that they would speak this way about this issue. They would not do it. Five years ago, most Republicans were still using preferred pronouns and all that kind of stuff. We know that, quote unquote, Sarah McBride accepted defeat. There really were very few Democrats. AOC was out, valiantly defending the rights of men to use the women's room in the Capitol. But there are probably a couple other Democrats, but not that many. That's the other very noticeable thing here, which also shows you why McBride had to come out and say, I'll use whatever, I'll follow the rules. I'm not interested in this fight. It's because nobody had his back on this, or very few people did.
Walsh doubles down on the isolation of McBride. He paints a stark picture. AOC is out there defending trans rights, but where's the cavalry? Walsh uses this to declare that the Democrats are fractioned, out of touch, and losing badly on this issue. Walsh reveals as what he sees as the opposition's crumbling foundation. Is it overstated? Possibly, but that's the whole point, to make the fight sound decisive and final.
And I don't think the other side can recover. And I'm not saying that we can stop paying attention to this issue and that it's all fixed and finished. It's obviously not. But yeah, I think that they are losing badly, and I don't think they can reverse it.
Walsh closes with what he frames as a triumph of sanity over bizarro world. His argument is simple. Trans activism has no defense, and once people wake up, the movement collapses under scrutiny. Walsh's confidence borders on overconfidence here. Claiming total victory is risky, especially when the cultural battle rages on. But for Walsh, this is about planting the flag and declaring dominance.
And the reason that it's over is because the other side, they don't have any argument they can present for this at all. They have nothing. There's no argument for it. It's the most indefensible thing ever, really. And so once everybody was awake and saw it for what it is, it's basically game over. And I think people are awake now. They're awake to the trans agenda. I don't think they're just going to fall back asleep. And then eventually you reach a critical mass in society where it's perfectly socially acceptable now for somebody to stand up and say, yeah, men are men. Men don't belong in the women's room. Perfectly socially acceptable. There's no reason to be worried about saying it. Of course, it should have been socially acceptable the whole time. So I think it's a losing battle. The remnants of this agenda everywhere that it's hiding, and root it out and get rid of it. That's what it comes down to.
Matt Walsh's analysis here is as bold as it is polarized. He frames the back-in debate as a decisive win for the GOP, a fatal blow to the trans agenda, and a sign of cultural awakening. Whether you agree or not, Walsh knows how to frame a narrative that grabs attention and keeps viewers locked in. What do you think? Is this the definitive win Walsh claims, or is the fight far from over?